Welcome to Let's Relieve Regret, the uplifting podcast where we talk about how to relieve what you're worrying about.
It can feel so good to finally let go. Let go of past hurts, let go of old grudges, let go of self-doubt, self-shame.
The thing is, we aren't always given the tools to let go. We're told to get over it, or it's time to move on. But how do we do that?
We will share our stories, tools, and strategies of how we let go to help you let go.
Let's begin.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Let's Relieve Regret. I'm your host, Shadoe Ball, here with my co-host,
Victoria Muir-Garcia.
And our guest, Kerry-Ann Cummings.
Hello, hello.
And Kerry-Ann is an entrepreneur, small business owner, explorer, founder of Angeli & Co., a natural handmade soap company, and certified project and account manager. If there's one thing Kerry-Ann is going to do is take a chance. And we love that you're taking a chance with us today on the Let's Relieve Regret podcast, Kerry-Ann. Welcome.
Yay.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Welcome.
Check in. So I'll start with you, Victoria. How are you doing today on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'm going to give myself an 8 out of 10.
Wow. Pretty high. Any particular reason?
Today's Thursday.
Okay.
Thursday's
Fair.
Fair. Thursday's my day where I don't book anything. I don't book, except for I booked this, but
right.
I try not to book one-on-one clients on Thursdays. I don't teach a class on Thursdays. So I don't have rowing practice in the morning on Thursdays. So Thursday is my day where I'm like, I get to sleep in. I get to be a lady of, leisure. I wake up when I want to wake up, and then I go for my walk, and I get my tea, and then I go sit on the beach. And then
oh wow.
That's what my Thursdays are like people's Saturdays or Sundays maybe, but Thursday's like my purposeful, intentional day off. When you own your own business, you can do things like that.
Yeah, amazing.
Or it's like my catch-up day, or when I might make Instagram posts or whatever. So I was free all the way up until like 3:30 today. I had one quick half an hour meeting, and then I have this. So it's been a pretty good day.
That's wonderful. I remember like back when I worked in like the corporate environment, the best thing about Thursday was that it was like Friday Junior. And I used to have a boss who would like come from cubicle to cubicle and go and be like, guys, it's Friday, Junior. Like, get that smile on your face. Like, and not necessarily toxic positivity, because like we'd all kind of roll our eyes, but like smile and like whatever. But that sounds like a much better Thursday than I think a lot of people get to enjoy. So that's great. Kerry-Ann, over to you. How are you doing today on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'm about a 7.
Okay.
Still decent,
Yeah, seven's good.
Not sitting on a beach decent, but just lots of payoff on efforts landed today.
Ooh, okay.
I really love that for me.
That.
So
yeah.
I love that for you too.
Thank you.
Wonderful. I'm gonna give myself also about a 7. I've been doing something this week that is my cause for applause, so I'm going to save that. But today was like the first day I could take Gertie on a really long walk because it wasn't so hot.
I knew you were going to love the weather today. I
know. It was like, because it's also like she can't handle over 30 degrees. She thinks she can. She wants to stay outside in the heat. Like that's giving her a risk of like heat stroke. So today, even though it was really sunny, because there was that wicked breeze coming through the city, at least, we got to go on like our longer, more like fun exploratory walk, and like that makes me happy too. And then she was really quiet all afternoon, which was nice. So
nice.
Yeah.
Kerry-Ann, where are you in the world?
I'm in Etobicoke West in Toronto.
Right. So we're all having the same weather today.
Yeah.
Yeah. That lake breeze, I think, pauses for applause. And I'm going to go first.
Okay.
Because, I'm really excited that this week I've been participating in Neurodivergent Entrepreneur Summit.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been every day, like Monday through Thursday this week. And every day has had like a bit of a theme. The presentations are really great. I feel really seen as well. Like it's interesting because like almost every presenter, like neurodivergence is different for everybody who's within the community, but there are some certain things that are like common. And I'm seeing that over and over in the presenters, which is like kind of amazing. Also, the person who's organizing it made it very neurodivergent friendly as a summit. So like every morning we get an email with the links to all the presentations for the day. So you can go on early, you can come on late, and you're not going to impact the session, which is great. And then you can also pause the presentation at any point and like take notes or a screenshot or whatever you need. And then also you can like speed it up if it's like something that you're like, well, I kind of already know this, or you want to jump ahead. Clearly, the organizer got all the presentations ahead of time and also had online transcripts available for every presentation. And then, you know, I start thinking about like, well, okay, well, my procrastinating part of my ADHD brain's like, well, okay, great. I don't have to look, I don't have to read any of these. I'll just get the transcript and move on. But no, she also built in this like chat box feature. So each session has the presenter available via chat box for only an hour of the day.
That's
so
so
like the hour that their video's running.
Yeah, well, the video is available all day long. You can access the video for up to 48 hours. So like Monday's sessions are over, Tuesday sessions are
So there
over.
isn't like a Zoom, like my brain's going to like, how did this happen? Because I want to run a summit too.
Yeah.
I want to run a Let's Really Regret summit. That's where my brain's going. So it isn't like a Zoom call and you log in and she plays the pre-played video on the Zoom call. It's just that the video will be available starting at 10 and this video will be available starting at 11.
Well, no, the videos, chat box. All the videos are available from the same time every morning. So you can go in early or like pre-watch them or whatever, but the actual chat function is only available for the hour that it's on the schedule.
Oh, that's it. That's so like, cool.
It is cool. Yeah. So like I had to miss a panel discussion that was yesterday that I was really interested in, but this morning I could watch the panel discussion. And like today, I really liked someone from the panel. So I made sure that I watched the video of her session like during the chat box hour so I could ask my questions.
Yeah. So it's this perfect curious question.
Yeah.
What have you learned?
Oh my gosh.
What's your favorite thing that you've learned? Like, why are you so excited about it? Why is this your cause for applause? What have you? Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting. There's the actual organizer has been using this language around permission slips, which I know sounds kind of silly.
Interesting.
But this idea that like the world isn't made for us and we get told that over and over, but we still don't give ourselves permission to build businesses that like would work for us. Finding all the different little sneaky ways. That's the bar. Yeah. Yeah. So finding all these little sneaky ways where like it comes up again. Right. So like you're like, okay, I am building my own business. I'm okay. And then all of a sudden you run out of money and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not okay. I'm going to throw this out and I'm going to start applying for jobs. But like that desperation.
We've had that conversation on this podcast.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So there's been lots of cool stuff around that. And just like, again, like reminding yourself to like recenter your energy and like start tracking different things. Today, one of the things I learned, which is awesome, is that like productivity tools, to give yourself permission to view those as toys. So Asana, Trello, Notion, any other kind of like hack you've come up with for yourself. There's a reason there's a lot of them, and it's because they don't stick for neurodivergent brains.
Gosh, it's
and instead of being like, oh my God, I spent a whole day setting up my Asana for like the next 3 months, and then you forget about it. And then you come back to it 3 months later and you're like, oh my gosh, I just don't even want to look at this. And I'm so embarrassed that I didn't stick with it. Like if you could view that productivity tool as a toy that you play with and get bored of, then there's no real shame attached to the fact that you got bored of it.
Can you explain, like, just for listeners that maybe aren't small business owners or whatever, What do you mean by productivity tool?
Well, there's like lots of different apps and stuff that like claim they can help you, demolish your task list, or like,
So they're like to-do lists and calendars and that kind of stuff. Is that
and
what you mean? Okay.
and they, there's integration with all your existing apps sometimes. So sometimes it's a brand new thing. And when it's brand new, it's fun and exciting. And of course it feeds all these little dopamine centers. But like, once you get it all set up and pretty and color coded, you're kind of over it. At least I am. And to hear that from like people at this summit, I was like, what a relief. What a relief to be like, oh, I don't need to like go back to Asana and go back to ClickUp and go back to these things that were just
I gotta tell you something that's kind of freaky. I'm not making this up. I swear to you, I'm not making this up.
Yeah.
So I do two things.
Mm-hmm.
One is I'm really into what you're saying because, as you know, I'm really big about actually leading by example. I think there's a lot of small business owners out there that have like an online persona and they're saying that they're living without overwhelm, but really they're living with a lot of overwhelm kind of thing. And I've been really clear about talking about it on this podcast and talking about it with my clients and with so that for one is, I like what you learned about kind of like not feeling shame around designing a business around how it works for you. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I've done because I'm a person living with anxiety and PTSD, right? So I have to do my 2-hour walk every day. I always book that 2-hour walk. And like I was saying, Thursdays are my day. Thursdays are my nothing day. And if that means I do some work on Thursdays that is just me alone in my office, or I just decide to take the whole day off because I'm going to take the whole day off, that's fine too, right? Like I've designed my business in a way that works for me. But the second thing I was going to say that honestly, this might sound kind of freaky, and I swear to God.
Sure.
I'm curious about what time you took. Were you learning that today about the productivity tools?
That would have been today around like mid-afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah.
I swear to God, I'm not making this up. I swear to God. I for some reason, my intuition also, I just started my period. So maybe I'm like in tune with the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
Today, when I was on my walk and I left for my walk around 1:00, I let my mind wander. And that's kind of when I come up with ideas for myths or something. I literally was thinking about how I run my business and how I pressure myself. And how I actually just prefer to do things paper pen, like how I track when I see my clients. I just have a piece of paper in my journal that's like, these are the dates I saw these clients so that I can invoice them at the end of the month. And I literally, my mind went to, I wonder how productive those productivity tools are.
Right.
And if there's been studies on them. And I swear to you, my brain was thinking all this stuff around the same time that you were learning this stuff.
That's
I'm just saying.
So funny. That's amazing.
I'm just saying. That's all. But I'm saying we were like cosmically aligned. That's what I'm saying. My brain was literally thinking about this as you were learning it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's my cause for applause, is that this summit has been like not just the content itself, but the way it was set up. I went, wow, like this is really like checking a lot of boxes for me. Yeah. And then I just also wanted to like, so today there was a keynote speech that was the time, like it was the time that like it wasn't pre-recorded. It was like everyone come to the keynote. It was the organizer. She put on this session, and like halfway through she literally was just like, okay everyone, I need to go pee, I can't think anymore, and stopped the session even though it was live, and went and used the washroom and literally was back in 60 seconds. Like she's like, literally, like I'll be gone less than a minute, and she was. But I just thought about like, I think at any other summit, you would feel pressured to hold, even if you had to pee so bad it's taking away your focus. So it was just like one of these moments where I was like, oh, okay, right. Like everything is
human.
We're human, and everything's so made up. But like, she just had to like, yeah. And it was so funny because even like 10 minutes before, she was like, oh, maybe people want a bio break. And then she was like, nah, we're probably okay. And then like about 10 minutes later, she was like, I'm halfway through. My brain has stopped working because I need to pee. So please give me a second or a minute. And we all
Can I comment on that for a sec?
Yeah.
That doesn't have anything to do with neurodivergency.
No.
So there's well, in my opinion, whatever.
Yeah.
So before every class I do that's not a movement class, because my fitness movement classes are only 20 minutes
Sure.
long.
Yeah.
But before I run my brain fitness class on Mondays and before I run my mindfulness letting go of worry class on Fridays, I always do a physiological check-in because the brain actually can't focus if you haven't met your survival needs. And the physiological check-in is, are you hungry? Are you overhydrated? Do you have to pee? Or are you underhydrated? And the things I check are your lips chapped? Is your tongue stuck to the roof of your mouth? Is your skin itchy? And do you have to pee? Because you literally can't focus. People think about dehydration, but they don't think about overhydration. It's the same side of two different sides of the same coin, right? But like you literally can't focus if you have to pee. Like all you can think about is I have to pee. Like if you've ever been in a movie, you know, we all have. You're halfway through the movie and you have to pee and you're trying really hard to focus on the movie and you're like, I don't want to pee. Can I hold it? And then you're like, no, I gotta go. And you hold it for an extra 10 minutes and then you're like, no, I gotta go now. Right? That's so interesting. I love that she was, and then the other ones are body temperature, if you're too hot or too cold. Shelter, like if you feel like someone's gonna come in and you don't have the door closed or you need the lights dimmed or you need it dark or you need a light. And then the last one is sleep. Pee is a big one and we haven't acknowledged that.
I was just saying, like the differentiating thing for me is that she acknowledged it, right? Like
how awesome.
It wouldn't be acknowledged, or if somebody noticed it of the presenter, they would just disregard it or be like, oh, like that's something that, you know, they have to worry about. But it was acknowledged, addressed, and shared. Like that's my mind.
Yeah, exactly.
It shouldn't, and I love that. So
yeah. And that's where it was for me too. So so I could probably gush about the summit a lot more, but I would love to hear from either of you with your cause for applause. Does someone want to go first?
I mean, I can go, but like, how do I follow that?
I know, exactly. Mine's like really small and simple too.
That's okay. We like the breadth of causes for applause. They could be big things, they could be small things. So
okay, well, my cause for applause is for Angeli and Co. So we've been interviewing a bunch of potential employees to join our company.
Nice.
Oh, that's exciting.
Organization. And I've been getting to have really great conversations with people. And so there's a couple people that I think might sign on. And again, I'm fingers crossing because like you never know. So yeah, that's my cause for applause.
That's great.
Yay. That's awesome.
Ramp up process, like hyping myself up. So yay, we're finally here and close to the finish line. So yes, fingers crossed.
That's huge. That I think blows mine out of the water.
Do you have a business partner? Why is it called Angeli and Co?
I do. I run the business with my dad and my sister, but it's called Angeli because my middle name is Angeli. And
okay.
Because they're the company.
Gotcha.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's so exciting. Expansion.
I know. I don't know. I want to scale organically and like figure that out organically. I don't want to feel pressured. So yeah,
you want to design it the way you want your life to run,
exactly.
Right?
And I want space to figure out what that is. So just being very intentional with it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Really
That's
cool.
a huge cause for applause.
Yeah.
My cause for applause is that I got a new office chair.
Oh, okay. What was wrong with the old office chair? What does your new one solve?
It has a higher back
and
a cushion on the back. So it kind of looks like an armchair, but it's an office chair, you know? Well, you guys can see it, but those of you listening can't. Yeah. So like a cushion on the back. So my last one, I don't know what they're called. It was like the one that had like the half back. They're called something. They're not called office chairs. Anyways, it was on wheels, but only had a half back. So I realized I've been sitting at my computer a lot and I need something to support my full back. So I'm very happy about it. It arrived yesterday and I'm very happy about my new comfortable office chair. And that's my cause for applause.
That's a great one. Man, I love all of it. Well, I'm feeling pretty like loose. I hope both of you are as well. Yeah. Okay. So Victoria's first. Victoria, do you have any like pre-story or preamble you want to share before you get into it?
This one kind of came up for me it's kind of weird. I know I'm sounding really witchy today, everybody. Like I'm aware that I'm sounding really woo-woo today when I'm like, when Shadoe was learning that thing, that thought literally went through my mind at the same time, but that's super true. This one, I don't know, this signal's been coming to me a lot, and I've been having actually a lot of client discussions about this topic lately for some reason. And I realize that I also have this within me, and it's a journey that I've been on as well. I guess that's my preamble.
Love it. Okay, take it away.
Okay, so I have something that I want to let go of, or something, I guess, that I used to regret or not understand in order to move forward. And that is, I have spent a lot of my life, I'm going to say in my 20s and my 30s, and maybe even in my teenage years, again, not understanding what it means, what identity means. Lately, I've kind of been, and this is again within the last 5 years, is understanding or processing like identity isn't what we do. It's not what I do. My identity is who I am. And that sounds really big. But so, for example, for a really long time, rowing was my identity, right? Like in university, rowing was my identity. And so it was, I thought that people would think, well, who are you? Victoria's a rower, or Victoria's a rowing coxswain, when people, because it was the most important thing to me in my life at that time. And I really just spent a lot of time thinking that was my identity. Also, this is another kind of funny one. When I was in high school, I had like really, really long hair. Like I could sit on my hair. My hair was so long. And I decided to cut it when I was in my last year of high school and I was 18. And I really struggled with that because I thought, how are people going to identify me? Because people say, oh, Victoria, she's the one with the really long hair. And then I actually went through this thing where I was like, I want to cut it, but who am I without my long hair? Right. And so I actually started thinking about this idea of kind of identity, or maybe it's not just the idea of identity, but it's the idea of self-awareness and having a relationship with yourself and knowing what that is. This is how I put it: is identity isn't what we do, it's who we are. And the way that I think about it is, if Christian, my husband, was going to describe me to someone, or if, my parents maybe, or if even Shadoe, if you were going to describe me to someone, it wouldn't be what I do. It might start with that as an identifier, but that's not my identity, right? You would say, oh, Victoria is my podcast co-host, but then you probably say something like, she's really confident about this, and she's really kind, and she's, that's who I am. She's really good at listening. That's who I am, right? That's not what I do. And this kind of comes back. We had this conversation, I think it was the last episode before the mini-sode, about my grandma and how my grandma never asked anybody what they do. When she first met a stranger, she would always ask them, what do you do for fun? Because that actually gets to the identity. So I guess the regret that I'm letting go of, and I think I've already let go of it, but I thought it might be interesting to have a little conversation about it, is, no, I do still have some regrets, right? Like I regret letting rowing be my identity for so long. And I regret letting my 9-to-5 corporate job be my identity for so long. When I left that job, I was like, what do I do now when I started my own business, right? Like, who am I now? For so long, I was Victoria, the award-winning community recreation programmer and caseworker that was the specialist in wellness and physical activity for kids. Like, who am I now? I think we struggle with identity in various transitions in our life and phases, but it's really important to remember that it's not what we do, it's who we are. The consequence of me holding on to that idea of identity, I think the consequence of anybody holding on to that idea that identity is what you do, is you're preventing yourself from having a deep, loving relationship with yourself. You're preventing yourself from actually truly knowing yourself. And you're also preventing yourself from being vulnerable and actually having deeper connections with other people too. And I also think when we don't know what it is, we also can't take a compliment. Like, we prevent ourselves from, when someone's telling us who they see us as, someone's telling us who we are, and we can block it. Someone's saying, thank you for being so kind to me. Thank you for doing that. And when we block those compliments, we're also blocking hearing who other people see, where we fit in the world. And they usually see us not as what we do, but who we are. So the consequence of holding on to that idea that identity is what we do and not who we are is really just preventing yourself from actually having a satisfied, fulfilled, psychologically rich life, and preventing yourself from having that relationship with yourself. So, I mean, that's who I was in my teenage years, 20s and 30s. And now I'm leaning into this, letting go of my identity isn't what I do at all. My identity is, how I treat people, how I love myself, how I love the earth, all of these kinds of things. That's actually my identity. And so that's who I was then. And this is who I am now. And now I'm on a new journey about discovering identity, or feeling more confident about it, and more confident about I'm learning new hobbies or doing new things. And I have a new business now and I do different things. And that doesn't mean that I failed, or that I'm like a wishy-washy person, or that I don't know who I am, because deep down inside, I really do have a relationship with myself and I really do know who I am. So that's who I was then. And this is who I am now. That's my regret.
That's steep. Thank you for sharing that. Do you want feedback today, or did you just kind of want to share that and get it out there?
Sure, I'd love feedback if you guys have anything to say.
Yeah, I love all the different
I knew you were gonna
identities.
struggle with this.
No. I've been kind of marinating on a similar regret that I'll talk maybe next episode about. I love it. I think you were the first person to teach me that, like, we have to make our identity outside of just like how we make money. But I was also thinking about, like, I love how you talked about how these identities kind of block us from receiving compliments. But I also am curious to your ideas around, like, sometimes these identities become shortcuts to connection as well. You know what I
Interesting.
mean? So, like, if I'm at a party, like, let's say I was at a party and you're there and I meet another rower, would I not want to be like, oh my gosh, Victoria is a coxie. I should introduce the two of you. I bet you have a lot to talk about. Or is that a different thing than this? Because it's like, yes, it blocks you, but there's also an opportunity for it to connect you. But yeah, like, maybe I'm
Can you
trying to put,
reframe the question?
okay, are all identities necessarily a blocker from connection?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But it can be a block from you connecting to yourself. Like,
Oh, okay.
I thought that my identity was that I'm a rowing coxswain.
Right.
I thought that that's the only reason why people saw value in me.
Okay.
And that's the only thing that, like, I could brag about, or that's the only, right? Like, so it prevented me from loving myself. So, like, think about when you had your government job, right? Like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that was a big part. Like, you thought that was part of your identity. And when you decided to leave that, were you like, are people still going to like me, even though I don't do that anymore? Right. Like, it actually prevented me from having a relationship with myself and understanding myself, because I thought that was my only value to the world, and my only value to myself was what I do, not who I am. Does that make sense?
That's a much clearer way of me thinking about it. Cause yeah, like, I of course I see all the negative connotations, but I was like, oh, but what about this positive connotation? So yeah, so I do appreciate that differentiator between connecting with others and connecting with ourselves. For me, I feel like, being a large person in the world, I really want to make sure I'm always seen as helpful. Like, I always want to be helping others. And whether that's like literally like getting my hands dirty and physically like helping people with stuff, or it's like an emotional help, I feel like if I'm not helping others, I don't have value.
Yeah, you don't have value. And that's not your identity, right? Like, that's not who you are. I see, Kerry-Ann, I see you like shaking your head and smiling.
No, I was just saying that's tough. That I'm just like, I'm digesting. Like, these are meaty topics. Yeah.
This I know, like, that's why I'm like, let's talk about it. We don't have to talk about it too long, but
yeah,
I still don't have a grasp around it. Like, I'm by no means an expert either, but once I was able to define that what I do isn't who I am, like, it's a part of who I am, but it's not completely who I am, I kind of felt like a sense of lightness, freeness, and it allowed me to be able to accept the compliments, or to listen to what people are actually saying to me.
Mhm.
People will show you, you've heard the saying, people will show you who they are. And often that saying is a very pessimistic way. Like, people will show you who you are. If they treat you badly and you don't think they're treating you badly, like, wake up, but people will show you who they are in good ways. People will also show you who you are in good ways. And we often block that when people give us compliments or people tell us something about ourselves that isn't about our job, our hobbies, or whatever. When people say, I really appreciate the way you listen with kindness and ask curious questions. Like, I really appreciate the way you connect, and we often block those things, but people will show you who you are too. And it's big and it's wide and it's vast and it's deep and it's gray and it's not black and white. I've gotten rid of the black and white part of it and understanding that it's gray, but I don't understand it fully. But at least I've gotten away from the absolute that, like, what I do is who I am and that's my only value. And like exploring other things and other ways to look at it and other mindsets and other perspectives and those sorts of things, if that makes sense. And if only one person hears this today and starts thinking about that, then like that makes me so happy, because I really do think it starts you on a path to better self-worth and self-confidence and self-esteem and all of those things. Yeah. And I think it kind of ties into what we've been talking about already too. Like, how do you design your business around, like, we're all small business owners here, right? Like, how do you design your business around who you are? Right? Like, how do you design your business around being a neurodivergent person? How do you design your business around let me reword that. How do you really know what your needs are and what your boundaries are if you don't have a good relationship with yourself? I know that I need a 2-hour walk every day for my mental health, for my physical health, for my emotional health. And I know that I'm a person that is highly sensitive to the world, that feels the world, that feels energies. Like, I know these things. I know I'm an intuitive person. So how do I design my business around who I am, and how can I make sure that I'm staying healthy by meeting my needs and having my boundaries?
Just gem, like, just dropping straight heat. And 100%. I had to go through the process of learning about myself and appreciating the realness of who I am as a person through a not so great set of experiences. And, typically that happens in a sequence. But whenever I talk to people about the things that I now know about myself, and they are a part of, as you said, who I am, I always get that response. It's so like, you have this clear vision of yourself, and it's like, you should too. And I'm not saying like it's going to be an easy process, because I don't know about y'all, but for me, it was trauma.
Yeah,
dark,
me too.
twisty. Like, it was not a fun time, but I always go through, and like, this can sound a little selfish, but the statement, you always have to take care of your number one.
Yeah, that's not selfish. Again, that's truth.
Right. It does sound hella selfish. However, people forget, like, their number one is them, their person. And it goes beyond like just your physical, your mental, like your dreams and compassions, like your passion, trying to figure out if you have one. If you don't have one, that is okay. Like, there's just so many definitions of what quote unquote being okay looks like, quote unquote, insert any kind of human condition that society tells you have to be successful, to be okay. So many people are battling so many different, I guess, like stereotypes or archetypes.
Yes.
And that turmoil distracts you from the fact that you need to learn what you are and who you are, what type of person you are. And there's a lot of noise. There's, again, we all, work and family. If you have kids, it becomes this tornado of confusion and dizziness that, unfortunately for me, it was not a not great time that forced me to face bro, like I need to figure out what it is that's going to help me, what it that I need. Because you get people in your family that are like, I would love to help you. Tell me what you need. And I was like, bro, I don't know. Like,
yeah, I don't know what I need.
That.
I don't know what my boundaries are. I don't know what my needs are. I don't.
Right.
And like wants are important too. And it's okay to have
This
wants.
Is it.
We judge ourselves for having wants. Like we could probably answer the what do you want question more easier than what do you need or what are your boundaries, limits, what's the edge for you, however you want to put it. And it's okay to have wants too. It's totally okay to have wants. That's part of it. I run a workshop called Boundaries, Needs, and Wants, and I talk about all three of them, right?
Nice.
It's totally part of it.
It's part of it.
We
and like, again,
ourselves.
That want is going to be different for everybody. And I encourage people to have wants only because, you know, it helps with a sense of purpose. It helps with, again, figuring out that I want this, but maybe I'm struggling with a boundary that's kind of creating that roadblock for me to get the thing that I want. And then there's a moment of realization.
Yes.
Like
it can
needs
teach
to be
you
all
your limiting
together.
beliefs or your boundaries when you talk about your wants. Yes.
Yeah.
And also like your wants can also tell you your needs. So I want a nice car, but why do I want a nice car? Sure. I want a nice car because I deserve it. Because I think I had a really shitty car for the past 3 years and my husband and I just got a new car. That's why I'm saying this as an example. And right. And like our car was falling apart and we were like just kept it going for probably a year longer than we should have. We were the people driving down the street and it's going click, 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 and people are like looking at you, right? And I'm like, I want a nice car, right? But really, why do I want a nice car? Because I deserve it. But really, it's because I want to be safe. I want a nice car because I want to be able to drive to my cottage in Montreal, which is 5 hours away, and I don't want to have to worry about it. I want a nice car because I want to be able to drive to Peterborough to see my family and I don't want to have to worry about it. So really, I want a nice car and I want to be happy about it because I want to be excited. You know, it's black and it's got black hubcaps too. So it's all stealthy and it's great and it's got black leather seats and I'm really happy about it. But what is it about that want that tells me about my needs? I'm a person that needs to feel safe.
Yeah.
Right. So you can learn from your wants. You can learn your needs also from your wants. So it's okay to have both. And not judge yourself about it. Yeah, exactly.
I think it's a requirement, but that's just me.
No, I 100% agree with you. And it gives us joy. And it's okay to want joy. And having wants can give us joy.
It's like even beyond joy, because your want it doesn't necessarily have to be something that brings you joy. It's just something to look forward to.
Yes, that's a good point too.
Something to work to, something to want to try. Yeah. Like, again, I don't want to get dark and twisty.
No, you can get dark and twisty. That's what this podcast is all about. Go for it.
Just having something, someplace, anything is, I think, a requirement. Even when I meet people and they say, well, like there's nothing. I'm like, there's always something. You just haven't found it yet. And then that becomes like, oh my God, literally go on Google and start typing in things that you thought are like super random, and you'll end up in some hole in some part of the internet for something that interests you, because that's how that works. I literally have sent like my fiance's dad's friends who are older, they've got more time on their hands, they're semi-retired, and they're like, I don't know what to do with life. I'm like, go on Reddit. What's the last thing they did outside? Go on Reddit. You'll find a thread that will have some kind of activity that is in the realm of where you are, and watch you end up in a completely different realm with a completely different hobby and like friends. Watch.
And I love that. Podcasts do the same too, right? Like there's literally a podcast for everything.
For everything. So it's needed. I think that's just my thought process there.
Love it.
Yeah, thank you both so much for such a rich conversation. But I do want to give Victoria the last word. Do you have anything you want to add to your share, any of the feedback you've received so far?
I just wanted to say to listeners out there, I just hope I opened a can of worms for you. Honestly, like it's a really good thing to explore. And I say this often sometimes we get afraid of exploring these types of things about ourselves. And this is like the basis of my entire business, is how do we explore and make deeper connections to ourselves. Deep work doesn't have to be heavy work. And sometimes we get afraid of deep work because we think it's going to get dark and twisty, as you said, Kerry-Ann, or it's going to feel heavy, or maybe we're afraid of it. Like deep work can also be light and fun, and we can learn these things about ourselves through experiences. So I think the idea of identity, people kind of shy away from having that conversation with themselves, because then they're afraid they're going to come up with this, which is a big one, which we all did when we were teenagers. Who am I? Like, it's like an existential crisis. Like, who am I? Right. And like, I don't know how to answer the question. So I'm not going to answer the question. I'm going to shy away from it. Just remember that deep work can be fun and light, and exploring things about yourself and your identity, or understanding these things. And really, for me, where the conversation started was, my identity isn't what I do. So what is it? And asking people, I actually had this really great therapist for a while when I was going through my like overwhelmed burnout 10 years ago. And he gave me this exercise, and he told me to ask 3 people to write a letter about me and give it to me. So how do they see me? Why do they love me? He challenged me to ask people that I was maybe afraid to ask. So what I got back was shocking. It was shocking to me. And people will surprise you, right? So ask people who they think you are, because people will tell you. And you know what? The world will surprise you, and people will surprise you, and you can really learn a lot. So again, I hope that my regret today opened up a can of worms for a lot of those of you out there listening. And I hope you enjoy the ride.
Kerry-Ann, we're going to, similarly to Victoria, I want to give you a chance to provide any pre-context if you like, but you don't have to. You can also just jump right into your regret.
Yeah, no, I don't think any pre-context is needed.
Great.
This, and hopefully people can relate. I would say I can't even say a single experience, multiple experiences that I would need to let go, or I'm in the process of letting go to move forward, would be feeling like I need to go into something or do something with somebody else in order to be successful, or in order to actually do the thing. Like feeling like I needed somebody else in order to try something, in order to start a business, in order to start a project, in order to travel, in order to go to a festival. It just feeling like I always needed somebody else to do that. I had multiple times in like the past 10 years, I've been in a mood of introspection in the last 5 years. And during that period of time, there's been multiple times where, I wanted to start an ad agency. My background is advertising and marketing. I really wanted to start one. This is like over 15 years ago. Imagine that. Itty bitty Kerry-Ann. I have all these ideas, ambition. I'm very outspoken. I'm really great at networking. I have all my ducks in a row. And don't you know, I go and I approach one of my really close friends and say, hey, basically pitch my idea to this person in order to muster up the guts to try. So we got to the point of, putting everything together, and that person had like different motivations. Their goals were different because obviously their goals are their goals and my goals are my goals. But for some reason, I felt like I needed to make my goals somebody else's goal in order for us to go forward. And during said period of introspection, I've done this so many times. It's actually wild. I'm not going to go through the different times that I've done it. I'm just going to, I gave one sample, but there's so many times. The first time I traveled, I was supposed to go with a group because I wanted to travel. And so I found some people who wanted to travel, went through the same process as what people experienced. The trip didn't get out of the group chat, and So I took my first leap of faith and I went on my first international trip by myself at 17 to Colombia. And that was like a life-changing trip for myself. It's the first time I broke through that barrier for myself. And obviously at the time, I did not realize it was a barrier, because who does when you're in it? You don't realize, you're just out here doing the thing. Again, thinking back on the decisions that I made, the chances that I could have taken, the places I could have gone, my career, my life, there are multiple times where, again, I relied on somebody else when I could have relied on myself, is what gets me. And in terms of support, I am lucky. I have a great family. I have support. Everybody around me tells me positive reinforcement and feedback. So why did I feel like I could not do these things by myself? And it took, funny enough, a dark and twisty moment, a little dark and twisty period of a year and a half for me to, during that period, learn about myself, learn about my needs, learn about what life needs to be for me. Coming out of that, I got, I guess, what people will call clarity. And that's when I started to realize that I've low-key been self-sabotaging myself for the last 15 years. But we're not going to settle on that. That just happened. Instead, we're going to settle on the first of many situations, Angeli & Co. When I first started it, again, that was another endeavor that I started with somebody else, that I felt like I needed to move forward with that other person. And as my typical MO, things got to get dark for me to move forward. And so that happened. But I don't know why that time it clicked for me, where I realized what I was doing. I cannot tell you what it was. Maybe it was the people around me. Maybe it was my job at the time. Maybe I was just outside. I don't know. But it was this company that I'm very much, going all in. I really want to be able to scale this company, but it was this company. Out of all the other different initiatives that I've tried over the last 15 years, it was this one when I realized I don't need to rely on somebody else to go forward with a vision that is mine, because the vision has always been mine. And funny enough, when I started to tell my family that, hey, like, this is the one that I'm going forward with, they were like, again, still supportive and, very encouraging. And I asked, because if there's one thing about me, I'm gonna ask a question. I asked what objectively from their point of view do they feel like is the difference? They're like, well, I feel like you really believe in yourself this time around. And if they're, again, I don't, like a presence, I think I'm awesome. So I was like, what do you mean I believe in myself? I always believe in myself. If there's one thing I'm going to believe in, it is me. But they were like, yeah, you believe in yourself. You as Kerry-Ann. You know what you want. You know what you like. You know everything about you. But we're talking about business owner Kerry-Ann, entrepreneur Kerry-Ann. In this aspect of your life, you always brought somebody along with you, and we love that for you. You are always going to bring your community forward. You're always going to bring people forward, but this needs to be about you, and we're happy you're prioritizing you. And I was like, okay, let me kind of go in a hole and process this for a little bit, because I didn't realize that I was doing this and no one told me. But also, who's going to tell you about yourself? So we get back to the knowing yourself, taking the time to learn about yourself. And now that, I have access to a lot more tools, I'm continuing to learn about myself as I change and evolve. But yeah, that's the one thing that I'm actively in the process of letting go. I do think, so like if we're talking like consequences of holding on to these things, it would be kind of backsliding. I think that's something I'm really afraid of. Now that I've had this realization, I have to actively check myself to say, like, Kerry-Ann, you can make this decision. Like, you can take this risk comfortably after talking through it with my fiance and my dad and my sister, because I'm still scared, but I started reading a book called Gravitas. I can't remember the author right now because I'm feeling all the things, but in this book, it talks about being scared and doing it anyways. And I'm really leaning into that right now. One thing I can say is, as I was making these, I guess, like errors, or again, betting on somebody else more instead of myself, I really, at that time, thought that's what I needed to do to move forward. It's what I thought I needed to do to be successful. So I do feel like at the time, I did the best with what I could. Where I am right now, I'm actively trying to make decisions that support me, that help me move forward while still bringing people with me, because I think that's also a charm that I'm able to, it's like my contribution to society. You know, I can continue to do that, but I still need to understand and remind myself constantly that I can make the decision and I can move forward. I don't need anybody, because obviously you need a team, but I don't need to wait for somebody else to make a decision that I am fully capable of making. That's it.
That was
Yay.
wonderful. Thank you for sharing with us. Would you like feedback on this regret, or did you just kind of want to talk it out and share it?
I would love feedback.
Okay, great. So I think Victoria is like so excited. I can feel like energy coming through the screen. So Victoria, why don't you go first?
Oh my gosh. First of all, I relate to everything you're saying so much.
I know which one you're going to talk
Yeah,
about.
I had a business partner because I didn't think that I could do it alone.
Mm.
And she ended up scamming me. Yeah. So there's a whole episode. So Shadoe is going to look up the name of the episode and we'll tell you in a sec. You should listen to that episode. There's a lot of regret and shame there, right? But it also made me realize that I was doing exactly what you were doing. I was afraid to do anything on my own. I always thought I needed somebody else to do it. And there's a difference between having a partner and having sounding boards, right? So you're saying, I know that I can make these decisions, but I'll talk to my fiance about it and I'll talk to my dad about it, right? But ultimately, it's your decision. I think finding a business partner is really, really hard. You're making it more complicated almost for yourself, unless you find someone that you really jive with and that has really good conflict resolution skills, the same skills that you do. Like Shadoe and I work so well together, and we're so lucky that we do. But Shadoe and I also she's rolling her eyes right now, everybody, because she's not accepting the compliment. But that's what I mean. I can call Shadoe out and she'll take it, and she'll call me out and I'll take it. But we also have really good conflict resolution skills and really good communication skills and all of these things. Ultimately, it's your decision. So again, there's a difference between having a business partner and thinking that you need that like backup, and having sounding boards, and then ultimately making your decision yourself. And it's so powerful, isn't it? Like the first time you made a decision about your business yourself. When I started this business that I have now, my Recreo.health, versus the one I had before, I'm like, oh yeah, I get to create this to be exactly what I want it to be, because I realized that I was kind of started taking a back seat because I was starting to turn into a people pleaser for the person that I was partnered with, when really I was actually the expert on the subject matter, because it was another wellness business and she wasn't. But I kind of let her take over in some ways. I mean, there was a lot of other things going on there in terms of manipulation, but
as there is.
So I feel you so much, like everything you're saying. I have a curious question that's totally random, but what's your birth order?
Birth order.
Are you a middle child?
In my core family set of siblings, it's a whole thing. I'm Jamaican. If you know, you know. I'm the middle child.
Yeah, okay.
But in the grand scheme of things, I'm like on the lower end of the set of siblings.
But you're not the baby and you're not the oldest.
I'm not the baby. I'm not the oldest. But I will say, in terms of like possession and responsibility, I'm like the emergency contact for everybody. I'm like the practical, you need help, you have a problem, everybody comes to me type deal, even though I'm not the oldest or anywhere close to the oldest.
So I asked because, and it was literally just a curious question. So I'm the middle child. And I think there's like a really special thing with middle children. But what you're saying too is I act like the older child in a lot of ways too.
This is like
we both, right? But I think there's like a thing about when you're a middle child, you have a partner in your older sibling and you have a responsibility with your younger sibling.
Yeah.
And that can translate into a bit of thinking that you need to have a partner to do everything that you need to do in life, because you kind of grew up in this mix of like responsibility and partnership. And when you're a middle child, sometimes it's almost harder to think you can do things on your own, because the older child was on their own and the younger child is also on their own when the two older children leave. But you were never on your own. I was never on my own. I was also forgotten a lot, which also makes like codependency things, which middle children are forgotten a lot, which also, my parents would forget to pick me up from things or whatever, right? Which also creates a like fear of being alone, or fear of making it right. So the totally just total side thought. I was just curious about that for my own, like, I don't know, validation, but
that definitely fits.
Like, yeah.
Before we move on though, I did want to like drop some gems. So the book that I was talking about was Gravitas. For sure recommend that. It is by Lisa Sun.
Okay.
So if any of the listeners are interested in checking that book out, I would highly recommend it. Life-changing.
We'll put it in the show notes. We'll give it a shout out in the show notes, which that was my next thing that I was going to say is, in that book, you said it talks about being scared and doing it anyways.
Yes.
I love that, because
being
scared and being excited both give us adrenaline. It's the same chemical, right? I don't know if she talks about that in the book, but also this idea again, which we've kind of been weaving through it today too, is getting rid of the black and white and kind of living in the gray, or living in you can feel more than one feeling at the same time. We're really complex. We're so complex, right? As human beings, and leaning into feeling more than one feeling at the same time. And I love that you talk about letting go too. Like, I can hear it in your vocabulary. So many studies done on letting go. And I literally teach a class called Letting Go every Friday night at 6 on Zoom. But the idea, there's all these studies of people that practice letting go or releasing, which is also what this podcast is about, suffer less from like these 4 things: anxiety, worry, self-doubt. That's kind of one category. Fear and fear-based decision-making. Right. And so there's a lot of fear-based decision-making going on with needing a partner. Right. But now that you've kind of learned how this like letting go, you're coming into your own and letting go of the fear-based decision-making too, which has been my experience as well, is how do I not make the decisions based on fear? So I just want to like, to use some big therapy speak here, but like, validate you and commend you and all those things. But I'm so excited for you. I want to hear more about your business too, because it's so exciting. It's just when you have that power to make the decisions yourself, because you have the creative freedom to put, you said this too, to put the stamp on the world that you want to put the stamp on the world with your business. And I'm a wellness expert. I'm like so many other wellness experts out there. I'm totally unique and totally different in the way that I look at things. And I'm sure your product and what you do, it's totally unique and totally different. And there is a special sauce in there for you. And when you ultimately get to make the decisions, you're ensuring that that is happening.
And that my perspective is being shared, which is
and that's a really powerful thing. And that's like, you can feel the fear at the same time that you feel that.
Exactly.
You can feel the fear of it, but at the same time, you're like, yeah, I'm doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes, I am. Yeah, I am. The last thing I'm going to say, because then I can tell Shadoe's anxious and wants to say something, is, you said, who is going to tell you about yourself?
The question of the century for me, honestly.
Ask people. Which was in mine too, ironically. And again, we don't know what the other, I didn't know what Kerry-Ann, Shadoe knew what Kerry-Ann was going to say today, but I didn't know what Kerry-Ann was going to say as her regret today. Yeah. Okay. So that's how the show works. So I also said that in mine, right? Like I was saying, once I started asking people, I started to learn who I am. But you have to ask. People aren't going to openly give it to you. And that's a really hard thing to do. But you started doing it, right? And then people will tell you who you are. And it will surprise you what their answer is. Let people tell you. Let people compliment you, Shadoe.
Yeah.
Okay, Shadoe, what do you want to say?
No, it's good. I was actually also going to point out the similarities between your two regrets, where, like Kerry-Ann, you really talked about it with this idea that you have your identity and then your identity as business owner, Kerry-Ann. And those are two
Yeah.
different identities that you kind of slip in and out of.
Yeah.
And it just, yeah, it was again, witchy woo science, all that stuff coming together where like, yeah, like, it's, and then you guys were talking about your middle child stuff. And I was like, well, I guess I'm just alone over here on oldest child island. And then you guys were like, and then those oldest children, they go and do stuff on their own. And I was like, damn, I just got called out without even saying anything. So that was a really fun moment for me. But yeah, so I just want to say, like, you illuminated something for me that I've never really thought about, where it's the repeating thing, right? Where you've had these experiences where you didn't trust yourself, but when you did trust yourself, you had this amazing time.
Every time.
Every time, over and over. And I was thinking about that too, where like in hindsight, it's usually the things we did on our own that bring us the most satisfaction. But then when we're in it, it's so hard to choose that. And I don't even have any advice around that. It's just like, you've really illuminated this for me, that like every time I trusted myself, I've had more joy. And then yet when I go to sit down and make a choice, I'm still making choices for other people and not myself. So thank you for illuminating that pattern.
I also think we look at the negative patterns and it's harder to see the positive patterns
easier,
because
100%.
You were saying I made a lot of decisions. I could see in my past I was making these decisions and choosing partners and the partnerships kept failing, kind of thing. But you also have a pattern of doing the opposite that started when you were 17, when you went to Columbia.
Yep.
But it's so much easier for us to see the patterns connected to the limiting belief and it to start like looking at the patterns that we have in our life that are also good, and can I lean into those patterns more?
It's also like the external pattern. So the times I made a decision that led to something positive coming out of it, and I made it independently, those kind of ride under the radar a little bit, because again, I wouldn't say like you are alone, but as an entity, it is you are one, and you're one amongst the world. But when you make decisions or have to, in this case where I thought I had to work with somebody else, that's why I found I was able to recall those situations so much easier.
Interesting.
Like there's a certain aspect, a lot less now, I will say, but a part of myself back then, I wouldn't say like people please, but I wanted to like make people feel better. I wanted people to enjoy working with me. Like there was that little bit of people pleaser that died. So
people won't want to work with me if they don't enjoy working with me, because
right. And so then that kind of perpetuated, well, now I have to work with people. And again, no one told me this. I cannot say where it came from, but it's just a belief that I had, and I'm so glad I don't have that belief anymore. But that I learned was part of like the limiting beliefs that I had and carried throughout my life. I think part of the biggest thing for me in part of the realization is just acknowledging it, recognizing it, and again, giving myself consistent reminders that I can make this decision. I'm still going to talk to whoever needs to be talked to about it. And as my network continues to grow, I'm still going to talk to people about it. But at the end of the day, I'm going to make this decision for me.
And because you're proud of what you're doing, right? You're proud of your business and you're excited about it, and it's scary and exciting at the same time. And it's your uniqueness.
Yeah. And that's when I know I'm making the right decision. Like, am I having similar feelings? Am I excited for this? Am I nervous for it? Like if I'm making a decision and I feel anything other than that, or anything approaching dread, is a wrap for me. RIP. I'm leaving. Like I've gotten those boundaries, but again, when we were talking about boundaries before, you have to know when you need them And I'm hoping everybody has a positive experience discovering what their boundaries need to be.
Yeah.
That's what I would wish for everybody. Mine were not really that situation, but I came out understanding and I learned something, which I take that as a win.
Do you think you can handle failure better now?
Oh, 100%.
After the journey? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think about it as failure. I'm going to try a bunch of stuff. And this, I was hearing on podcasts, over the last 15 years, like fail forward and things like that. And I'm just like, if anybody were to come to my face and tell me to fail forward, I will tell them about themselves, because what does that even mean?
Yeah.
How about, again, this is something I learned from Gravitas, but I'm telling you, this book changed my life. It basically alluded to, like, every time you experience a failure, the failure is irrelevant. It's what did you learn from it? Like, there is a learning in every single failure.
Yeah.
So everybody else is going to categorize it as a failure, but it doesn't matter what they think. It's what did I learn from here so that I don't repeat it?
Yeah.
And also now I have this experience that is going to help me make better decisions, more informed decisions, more strategic decisions forward. It's information about yourself. Information, accurate
information. Yeah.
First party information. Like that is what I take forward now. And again, I do not linger. So that is.
Well, you sound like a business owner to me.
Absolutely.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. Yeah.
And I like hearing that, as much as you're able to trust yourself to make the decisions, there's also more people coming along to do the work. Because I think sometimes we get it's a slippery slope to be like, okay, well, I have to do everything then. But you don't. And it's like having that relationship with yourself also lets you know what you can do and what you need to delegate. And it seems like you're well on your way to that part of the journey as well, which is so exciting.
I know. Like thinking about going beyond myself is, I would say, something that I've been working on for the last 2 years. And I'm excited about it. But again, it's hard to do if you don't know yourself. So it's like everything is connected. We were meant to have this conversation, and we were meant to share regrets, because it's full circle for sure.
Yeah, I totally believe in that too. The witchy woo-woo part of me. Everything's connected, right? But there's science to it. Everything's connected, right? We are part of nature. Nature's all connected. There's amazing things, and we have to be open to learning and having these brilliant conversations and these learning conversations. And this has been a good one.
Kerry-Ann, I would also like to give you a chance to talk about your business.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that. I want to hear more. I want to hear more about your business. What is it? What does it do? Tell our listeners. Yeah.
So the business is called Angeli & Co., Angeli & Company on all socials and website. Essentially, we make natural handmade soaps with natural essential oils. I do the essential oil blends myself. They smell great, provide a great aromatherapy experience, but even best, they're just really good for your skin. So there's a ton of science and knowledge behind there. It's all organic, all natural ingredients, and really just simple recipes that I like to call them simple, low ingredients, and just, again, really good for the self-care that I think everybody needs. Lots of people are struggling with things like skin conditions. And again, it's nothing crazy, but I always encourage people to try it, see how they like it. And I've gotten tons and tons and tons of positive reviews. Again, we've been in business for 3 years at this point with tons of returning customers. So we know we're doing something great. And what I like to say is a plus of us is we actively seek feedback from the people that use our products. They're like, here's what I would like to see. Here's what I would love to be able to get. And we kind of look into it and develop it and kind of go from there. But yeah, natural handmade soaps.
Can I ask a curious question too? What's your best-selling soap, or what's your most popular soap?
Okay, so our best-selling is the vanilla honey and oats. Everybody's obsessed with oats right now. but there's actually like a nutritional benefit to it. And that one is based with shea butter soap. So I shea butter over everything. Okay. And I've been able to have customers who would normally use like things like black soap. So just like really acidic soaps. And I've converted them to shea butter soap. So I call that a win if we're talking about the soap Olympics. But I just think everybody should try it. And it doesn't have to be something that you use every single day. If you have a routine, I'm a routine girl. I totally get it. But I also have 3 soaps on go at any given time. So I'm completely biased. But
and you should be biased about your business. And it sounds like you do, right? Like you really believe in your product. So I definitely want to try some. I want to try some.
And yeah, speaking of bias, I'm always curious. Like, I love the question about what's your best seller, but what's your favorite product? Because I bet you they're not the same.
They are not.
Yeah.
My favorite product. Okay, so I have 2 that I'm going back and forth with right now. Is the Blood Orange and Zest soap. So it's I really like right now with the weird cold hot weather. I need something milky. I need something creamy. I need something that's going to be brighten me up because I'm working a lot right now. Again, trying to grow this business. So there's that, but then there's also eucalyptus and balsam fir, which I know it sounds like very piney, but it has a little bit of vanilla essential oils in it. So it's like calm vanilla musk with a little bit of pine.
That sounds amazing.
And again, it's just me experimenting with essential oil blends and thinking about who do I want to use this soap bar and what benefit do I want them to get from it? And then I figure out the blends from there. So yeah, I'm just, again, my ultimate goal is just to try to help as many people as possible, help people bring to the forefront like actual self-care, a little bit of mindfulness, being present in your body. That's the number one thing that my therapist has always told me. Lots of people struggle with this. I know I did, I still do. And if I'm able to make something that helps somebody do this a little bit every day, however often they shower, I will consider it a success.
Yeah. And self-care can be simple things too. People really sometimes are scared of the word self-care or say, I don't do enough. I know I need to do more. And if it can be as simple as having a really beautiful bar soap that has aromatherapy, that's good for your skin. And I like that you said you don't have to use it every day, but when you use it, right, you get that 5 minutes or 2 minutes or 1 minute if you're just washing your hands with it or whatever it is, that all counts. It all counts towards self-care and having a better relationship with yourself and your body and your skin and your emotional health too. You know, you found the right business for you. You speak so passionate about it. It's so funny. I'll never forget. There was this one episode of Oprah. I think I've talked about it on this podcast before, but there's this one episode of Oprah where she was talking about passion, and she brought her esthetician on. I get the person that gives her facials. And the woman was like, my passion in life is popping pimples. Like, I just love popping pimples. And Oprah was like, she's so good at it. And look at my face. My skin is so great. Right. Yeah. And so she's like, I think about that because I think, everything that you do matters and you can find a way for connection. And you found a way to connect through soap. And I love it. Right. And you're clearly passionate about it. And you're saying, hey, this soap isn't just soap. It can be self-care. It can be skincare. It can be self-confidence. It can be all these things. And that's how you know you're in the right business. And that's how you know you're in charge. You did it.
Excellent. Okay. So Kerry, thank you so much for being here today. I want to give you the last word before we go into our 3 clearing breaths. Is there anything else you want our listeners to know?
I would say just bet on yourself. Just try it. That would be, if you take nothing else, just trust me, trust us, and bet on yourself and just see what happens. That's it.
Love it.
See what happens. Amazing. Love it. All right. So Victoria always leads the final part of our episode, which is our 3 breaths. So take it away, Victoria.
That ties in beautifully to our 3 breaths about trusting yourself, getting to know yourself. Our 3 breaths this season are about calling in for yourself. So please put your feet flat on the floor. If it's safe for you to do so, everyone, if you're driving, please be safe driving. And if you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes and place a hand on your heart. Just take a moment to let your feet sink into the floor and recognize your connection to the earth. Know that gravity is never going to let you fly away. That's your feet sinking into the floor. And because gravity is never going to let you fly away, that means that the earth wants you to be here, the world wants you to be here, and you are worthy just because you are a human being that exists on the face of this planet. You are always supported. So let's take our first breath. Taking a big breath in through your nose and a long exhale through your mouth. And as you're exhaling, saying to yourself, I know forgiveness may be challenging, but it can also be liberating. I'm calling in the humility to allow it to enter my life and experience how it transforms me. Taking another inhale in through your nose and a nice long exhale through your mouth. My body holds immense wisdom. It can guide me towards healing and wellness. I'm calling in the ability to listen to my body and learn from it. And on this last breath, taking a big inhale in and a nice long exhale out, I am choosing to believe that I am magnificent. I'm calling in joy, connection, strength, and love. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone out there. Thank you, Kerry-Ann, for joining us. That was such a fun conversation. It sounds weird that I'm saying fun because we got deep, but that's what I mean, right? For me, fun is like fulfilling, satisfying, connecting, right? And so I want to thank you so much for being honest and open with us on the podcast. And I know for sure it's made a difference to our listeners as well.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you so much. We'll see you, hear you, be with you on the next one, everybody. Hope you have a wonderful day. Love ya. Okay. Bye.
Okay, bye. This episode of Let's Relieve Regret was produced by Shadoe and Victoria Muir-Bercia.
Editing by me, Victoria Muir-Bercia.
We are an independent podcast supported by you, our listeners.
If you think this podcast sends a valuable message, you had an aha moment, or learned something new about yourself, help us realize our goal of reaching as many listeners as possible.
We encourage you to take action and support us right now by choosing one of the following options.
You can easily support us by
following us on Instagram at relieve.regret.
Tell 2 friends.
Leave a 5-star review on whatever app you're listening to us on.
Leave a tip at coffee.com/Let's Relieve Regret podcast. That's ko-fi.com/Let's Relieve Regret podcast.
Join our conversations in the Facebook group, Let's Relieve Regret Podcast.
Find all this information, all the links, and more in the podcast notes. Okay, bye.
Bye.